Hello, this is Ray Casonas, Executive Editor with the Monroe News. We're doing a Facebook Live segment with Dr. Stephen McNew, who is the Superintendent of the Monroe County Intermediate School District. Thanks for doing this. I appreciate it, Steve. If you can, could you just talk a little bit about the ISD and its role in this community and some of the things that it provides for our students?
Absolutely.
If you don't mind.
Absolutely. Primarily the ISD focuses on the needs of special needs students.
Mm-hmm.
In this county we have just shy of 4,000 students that are considered special education students.
Okay.
So that's our primary role, and in that we work with our local districts to provide services such as our classroom teachers, aides, social workers, OTs, PTs, any type of service that students that have special needs would require. That is our primary role. In addition to that, we do a lot with technology. You're familiar with the Technology Enhancement Village that our community has so graciously supported since 1997. Mm-hmm. We do a lot with curriculum type work, human resources, legal counsel stuff, just a kind of a full service shop for anything to do with public education.
Mm-hmm. And if I understand this correctly, you have employees that are scattered all throughout the county and serve all the districts in our county. Isn't that correct?
Absolutely. We serve students birth to 26 at the ISD. We are physically housed on our campus is on Raisinville Road,
right,
which is right next door to the community college.
Right.
But off of that campus, we have almost 100 classrooms scattered throughout the Monroe County. And so birth to 26, we're working with students. And the earliest children, you're going to see our early Head Start, GSRP programs, our early on programs. Then moving into all the schools with our support for students in those schools. Then we have our Transition Center program, which really deals with students that are of graduate age, so maybe 18 through 26. Mm-hmm. And the role there is to do what we can to get those students independent so that they can live on their own, work, and we do what we can to help them secure employment. We actually opened a new site for our Transition Center this year down in South County, through the Whitman Center in a partnership with Monroe County Community College. So we continue to expand. Today I have about 530 employees. So the ISD is one of the largest employers in the county.
There you go. And just to reiterate, you serve children from birth to 26.
That's correct. We are the only state in the country that still serves students, in that case adults, young adults and adults, to up through the age of 26. So when we get them as a little one, sometimes we keep them for 26 years.
Right. And so when a citizen, a person goes shopping or throughout the community, we often run across some of your students. Isn't that correct? I mean, when we see a student with special needs and he or she is working, that person came through your program and is now actually living on his or her own as much as possible. Isn't that correct?
That's correct. And the beauty of our program is there are some students that you may recognize as students with special needs, but you come across a lot of students that have gone through the program that have special needs, and you don't know it.
Right.
That work throughout this county, and that's the beauty of our program, is that we prepare the students to be independent students or adults in this community, and that's our kids.
Right.
And they're throughout every restaurant, every department store, every grocery store. You're going to see our kids working, or adults. You probably wouldn't even know it.
And I think there's one more important thing that I'd like to address, is that your program is certainly not for special needs kids, because I know personally and firsthand that you offer services for children who may need just a little extra boost in certain speech
Absolutely.
or occupational therapy. So when someone thinks of the ISD, they should not automatically think of just special needs. Isn't that correct?
That's correct. And one thing, a point that I'd like to make is that when students come to us or to our local school districts, they are students. They're not necessarily special education students.
Correct.
They're students.
Right.
And they may require some additional services.
Correct.
And you're absolutely right. Speech is one of the big ones.
Yeah.
You know, we have some students that come to us at a young age that have some speech delays. Those aren't considered or labeled special needs kids.
Right.
They just have some developmental situations or issues that we work with. So we work with all students.
Right.
What I like to say is that if it involves students and or teachers in this county, doesn't matter if you're general ed or special ed, the ISD is probably involved some way.
So your impact, the ISD's impact on this community cannot be understated.
Oh, absolutely.
When it comes to education, services, everything from a child who may need a little help with speech up to the severely mentally and physically ill children and young adults who need even that special care. I mean, it sounds like the entire gamut is
absolutely
is
broad range of services. We're very comprehensive, and if it involves students,
it
or
involves
teachers,
the ISD.
The
All right.
ISD is involved.
All right, now tell me a little bit about how you are funded. What is your usual what is an average annual budget for the district, and how is it that you're funded?
Well, I mentioned that we are primarily focusing on students with special needs.
Right.
The one thing I will mention is that students come to us as students, general education students. So every student, schools receive a foundation allowance.
Okay.
Okay. The ISD is a little different in that we have a charter millage in this community. So
Okay.
when you get your tax bill,
Right.
you'll see the special education charter millage on there.
Right.
And so through property taxes, you pay into this special education fund.
Okay.
And we have a fund equity for special education. And this year, we call it Act 18 dollars or charter millage dollars. The ISD's overall budget is about $57 million.
$57 million.
Which about 60% of it comes from our property taxes, and the other 40% might come from the state through some foundation allowances, might come from federal funds.
All right.
So there's a lot of different funding streams that make up that other 40%.
Right, but property taxes is a huge income, is a huge source.
Like I said, at least 60% of our budget.
All right. So let's shift now to the DTE. How much of an impact do the taxes on DTE have on the ISD specifically?
Well, let's not just talk about the ISD. Let's talk about the entire community.
All right.
Because the impact the city of Monroe, the power plant here, the coal plant,
right,
is about 48% of their revenue stream.
Correct.
So anything any reduction in property tax, because I know that's where we're going with this, is going to hugely impact the city of Monroe. The ISD, we do get a large percentage of our budget comes from the property taxes that are paid by DTE. But rightfully so. Look at the size of DTE. We have the coal plant or the power plant in town, and we have Fermi too.
Right.
They are the largest employer in this community.
Right.
And so we rely on that revenue stream heavily.
All right. And then as most of us know, they are trying to have their assessments lowered, so they have to pay less taxes, which to the community could be to the tune of anywhere
millions.
from millions,
tens of millions of dollars a year.
Could be 24 or more $1 million.
It's significant.
If it gets these moves approved, how much of an impact is that going to have on the ISD?
Well, we have the two plants. We have the power plant,
Right,
and we have
and the
Fermi
Fermi.
2.
Each of them are supposed to be around $12 million in the end, but it could be more.
Of that $24 million that you're talking about, 12 for each plant.
Correct.
The ISD probably makes up about $2.5 million of that $24 million.
All right.
So I could potentially, or the community could potentially lose $2.5 million from the special education.
From the special
millage.
education.
Now it sounds, DTE is going to tell you, well, we're going to pass those savings on to our customers.
Correct.
So when you do the math, and you look at the number of customers that they have, and for them to pass on the savings, you're talking pennies a month. Our calculation is about less than 60 cents a month.
Okay.
So 60 cents a month, so you take that times 12, so $7.20. Is it worth $7.20 a year for me when I know that the money that I'm paying in property taxes is what services are being provided to, in my case, the most vulnerable population in this community, and that's the children with special needs.
All right. And it will. What can you foresee possibly happening? Are you talking about if it happens and that 2.5 to 3 million that you're talking about? Could that affect services?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And it not only will affect services at the ISD, but it's going to affect services in our local districts as well, because the charter millage money that we get, that you pay property taxes on, when we cover all of our instructional costs each year as a county, whatever's left over, 100% of those funds go back to our 9 local districts to cover additional costs for special education.
Okay.
So when I go to my locals and say, oh, by the way, you are now being cut, we are in this county are going to be cut $2.5 million out of those funds. There's no way, when 85% of your budget is personnel,
Right.
there's no way that it can't impact our classrooms.
Right.
When you start cutting programs, and you're going to have to start cutting people, you're going to start cutting programs, you're going to have to relook at your curriculum, revisit a lot of those budget items that you have been, things that you've been providing these kids.
Right.
And it's a tough pill to swallow when to go to a parent and say, oh, by the way, I understand your child is severely challenged, there are a lot of needs here, but I may not be able to provide your child's needs because we had to cut our budget to the tune of $2.5 million.
Now, let's look at DTE. I mean, this has been a company that's provided many services throughout the years. They've been a very good friend to the county, and shouldn't they, as a business, shouldn't they not be looking to make things to make fiscally responsible decisions? Isn't their right to pursue lower taxes for whatever reason, and why should they have that type of a responsibility to begin with? I mean, their taxes are going to services, clearly, but isn't it their right as a major company to do what it can to be fiscally responsible?
Absolutely. It's like me. I'm responsible to be a good steward of the public's money, because you pay property taxes, and so the work that we do, it comes out of your pocket. I do think that DTE has a right, and they've exercised that right. The problem that I have is pretty much twofold. One is we've been betrayed. What has been reported to us by DTE is not accurate, and what they're going to tell the community is what the community wants to hear, and that's unfortunate. And I think probably the most important thing to mention there is that even though I think it's important that they take a peek at and dig deep, if you want, into property taxes.
Right.
Be transparent with your governmental agencies that are going to be impacted, and when you look at what they're seeking as far as a reduction in the property tax value of those two plants,
Right.
and the timeline that you're talking, it's devastating to this community.
Okay.
On the power plant, the petition that was filed with the Michigan Tax Tribunal is seeking 58.2% reduction.
Yeah.
In Fermi 2, they're seeking a 60% reduction.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know any business that relies on property taxes that could sustain those types of cuts, and immediate cuts too.
Right.
Even if it stretched over a 2 or 3 year period of time,
Right.
how do you deal with that loss of revenue when you have students and parents that are relying on those services?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And to be honest with you, those children deserve those services. If you have or know of someone who has a child with special needs, you want them in our service, in our program, receiving the services.
Absolutely.
I just really struggle with going to parents and saying, you know what, even though DTE has been a good community partner, at least the perception is that they've been a really good community partner, because they have sought such a huge reduction or devaluation of these property tax values, I can't provide these services any longer.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's. I'd like to wrap this up and just ask you one more question.
Sure.
What is it that you and the others who are impacted by these potential cuts? What's next? What do you plan to do?
What we plan to do is we are seeking legal representation.
Okay.
We have been backed into a corner,
Okay.
and we really, at this point, we don't have a choice. The problem that you run into with that is now you're going to spend taxpayer dollars on top of what you're going to lose.
Okay.
We're anticipating at least $1 million just to litigate
Okay.
the power plant.
Right.
I'm
Just
not even
the power
talking
plant.
Fermi 2
All
at
right.
this point. I'll just talk about the
So
power
$1
plant.
million, and where's that money going to come from?
It's going to come from our general fund.
Okay.
It's going to come from the bank account,
Okay.
from all of the governmental agencies that are impacted by a reduction in property taxes from DTE. Now, we have been at the table together,
Okay.
these governmental agencies. We have commiserated, we have cried, we have fought, we have brainstormed, and
Right.
the bottom line is that we have to stick together and seek legal representation.
Yeah.
We
So
really don't have a choice at this point.
$1 million just for the power plant and legal costs.
We're guaranteed a minimum of $1 million,
There you go.
absolutely, that we're planning to take out of our budgets.
Right.
In addition to, and here's the thing, the tax tribunal received these petitions in 2018. It may take several years to settle, but because everything was date stamped 2018, if it's 5 years, they can go back 5 years and collect
Before.
plus interest
Plus interest.
what they would have received in a reduction. So, I mean, I understand that it's a business decision.
All right.
I was informed by a representative of DT, it's for protective measures. For whom?
Good point.
A company that Jerry Anderson, the president and CEO, just recently stated made record profits last year,
Right.
in addition to $1 billion. It's a tough pill to swallow, Ray.
Yes, sir. Dr. McNew, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time.